Hey, this is Heidi Dawson. If you love all things health and wellness and style of any kind, hang out here with me each week. I'm obsessed with never-ending improvement, and it's all in an effort to help each one of us live a wildly successful lifestyle. Subscribe today so you don't miss a thing. Hi, guys. Welcome to episode 471 of the Wildly Successful Lifestyle Podcast. How's the day going? Have you reminded yourself today that happiness is just a thought away? Our thoughts create our whole world. Once you really start to wrap your brain around that idea, you start to notice that it's your thoughts about anything that dictates your mood. Now, I've started asking myself when I notice I'm feeling sad or if I'm down or frustrated, I'll ask myself, now what thoughts are creating that feeling? And then I'll get to the business of either changing my thoughts, or if my thoughts are a bit strong about a topic, I get to the business of changing my focus. It's worked every time I actively try it. So I'm strengthening my mind every single time I notice a thought that isn't serving me, and I purposefully and intentionally change it. This is really important, especially during times of high stress, because there can be no peace of mind without strength of mind. That's a quote by Gutkind. There can be no peace of mind without strength of mind. So how do you strengthen your mind? Well, just like you strengthen your body, you work at it. You train it to think the way you want it to. You listen to podcasts like mine. You notice the thoughts that are not serving you and you change them. And if you have trouble changing your thoughts about a certain thing, then you change your focus. Sometimes things are just too hot for you to be able to think rationally or positively about. You have any of those topics? I know I do. Just this last week, I was dealing with one. I have several design projects I'm working on at the moment, which I love. Now, every once in a while, something will come up and I can feel that bubbling feeling of frustration growing inside of me. And I know when that's happening, I can get pretty emotional, especially when it's a design aspect not being the way I want it to be. Now, this last week, I noticed that a refrigerator that had been installed in one of my kitchen renovations was in my mind very obviously installed incorrectly. It's a $10,000 refrigerator that's supposed to be flush with the cabinet. And it was not only sitting out about an inch, maybe an inch and a half away from the cabinet, but it was also just a hair crooked. Now, the clients were out of town, thank goodness, so I bring it to the attention of the contractor, and at first he didn't notice what I was talking about. He said, well, this one's different from, some of the others we've installed, implying in my mind that it was installed correctly, but that it was just different, so we have to get used to it. So that felt very wrong to me, and I noticed I was quickly going from concerned to very irritated really quickly. Now, side note, my contractor has always fixed anything big or small, so I had no reason to be worried this would be any different. But I noticed myself starting to get very irritated. And when I did notice that, I simply stopped and I said, okay. And I said to him, I want to go on record that the installation of this refrigerator is not going to work. It's not okay. And then I just moved on to other things. I let my voice be heard. When we're in the midst of several big projects like we are right now, things are going to come up, of course. And this week it seemed like we had several things coming up. And I heard myself saying in my head, everything's just snowballing. So now I'm creating bigger problems in my own head. So when I got back to my office, which is in my house, I kept thinking about that refrigerator and dwelling on it and worrying about it to the point to where I actually went in and printed off the installation instructions for that specific refrigerator, and I studied it, even while I was laying in bed. And I discovered that it was indeed installed incorrectly. Now, I noticed that my mind was going a little off the charts when I was doing that with the bad things that could come from it. I mean, like, would we have to replace the whole refrigerator? Would they even do that? Would the installer be responsible? Would the contractor be responsible? Would I be responsible? Maybe we would all be. But our client trusts us. And I was thinking, how could we let this happen? I was just really spiraling. At one point, I had a thought of too much is going wrong this week. I'm just not equipped to handle all of these problems. You see how quickly and easily our mind can make us absolutely miserable and crazy? Finally, I stepped in and I took control of my mind. I stopped the madness and I told myself, look, this is a situation that cannot be remedied while I'm laying in bed. So I'm going to leave it to the universe. I'm going to let go and let God, as the old adage goes. And that's what I did. And as soon as I told myself that, I felt this weight lift off of me, knowing that it was out of my hands at the moment. There was nothing I was going to be able to do about that refrigerator laying in my bed at 10 o'clock at night. So I completely just let it go. And I knew in my heart that it was all going to work out, because it always does. And the next day, my contractor called me and he said, well, you were right. It was installed wrong. And all they have to do is remove this flange and push it back a little bit, and it'll be flush. No problem. All will be as it should be. And I knew that that would be the case. Now, in hindsight, I could have let go and let God a little earlier and saved myself a lot of anxiety. But I'm going to give myself grace and acknowledge that I did eventually come to that conclusion, which allowed me to sleep peacefully. Being able to control your thoughts when they start to spiral is a mind-strengthening habit. I would have had no peace had I not done that. That's why it's so important to remember there can be no peace of mind without strength of mind. Letting our mind continue to dwell on the difficulty of the situation or the problem is never going to allow the solution. They're on different vibrations. Allow yourself to focus on something other than that difficult problem you're going through, and you'll put yourself in a better situation to come up with a solution. I couldn't fix the refrigerator, but I could stop dwelling on it, and I could just allow that others will fix it, which is exactly what I did and exactly what happened. We want and expect for things to always be easy, to always work just exactly the way we want them to without any difficulty on our part. But that isn't how life works, and we wouldn't want it to either. We would become soft and weak if we never ran up against any challenges. Challenges build character. They strengthen us. They prepare us for what lies ahead. They strengthen us for our next phase. You don't want to go to that next phase without the strength you gained in the one before. When Molly, my baby sister, was in college and she was also working, she decided she was going to get a little puppy, a little Yorkie. Now, we told her it was a very bad idea, but she thought she was smarter and did it anyway. Eventually, she came to me crying because her little Yorkie was home 12 hours a day alone, and she felt so bad. And what could she do? And she was so upset. And so I told her, okay, well, here's what you're going to do. You're going to bring her over here in the morning and drop her off to me like a daycare, because I'm home a lot. I'm home most of the time. And then you're going to pick her up when you get off work. And that's a full day. So you drop her off and then you're going to pick her up, just like daycare. It'll prepare you for when you have kids. So that's what she did. And by the third day of her dropping this little Yorkie off, this sweet little Yorkie decided she wasn't having it. She was not leaving my house, our house. She decided on her own she was absolutely not going back to Molly's apartment to live with her. She was living like a princess here. She liked it, and that's where she was going to stay. So she kind of ran from Molly. It was a whole event. But that little Yorkie turned out to be our little Kinsey. You've heard me talk about her many times. She lived with us until she was 14, and she passed away just a few months ago. I have talked about that, and we miss her very much. But Molly learned a valuable lesson there. It strengthened her to the point where when she graduated college, she got married, and she had a job where she had a lot more time. She was able to get another dog, and now she's a better dog mom than anyone I've ever seen. I don't know that she would have been that without that experience. It strengthened her. And I also know that this will prepare her for when and if she decides to have children. Viewing life's challenges as hard is okay, but remembering that they're preparing you for your next phase is so good. You don't have to be thankful for the problems, but you can be thankful for the strength you gain from them. Tony Robbins always says the problem is not that you have problems, it's that you think you shouldn't have problems. I love that. It helps me remember that. Every problem you overcome makes you stronger. I believe we're better off for them. I've always been stronger and better off when I've overcome a problem. Haven't you? We're definitely stronger mentally, especially when we overcome them. And remember, peace of mind is always possible when you have a strong mind. My challenge to you today is when you have a problem that seems overwhelming, ask yourself, how can I either change how I'm thinking about this, or what can I do to change my focus? The solution and the problem are not on the same vibration. So in order to allow the solution, you have to rise above the problem. Sometimes this comes from just giving yourself peace of mind to just let it go for now and leave it to the universe to allow the answer. And remember, the strength you gain from any challenge prepares you for your next phase. Life is kind of like a video game in that way. You aren't going to go to the next level until you learn what you need to learn to get there. Share this with 3 people who just keep getting stronger. I love you guys. I'll talk to you in a few days. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends because we're just going to keep going bigger and better places together, and I love that about us. Talk to you in a few days.